Following World War II, and especially after Vietnam, there were a few U.S. military small arms ammunition plants that closed down. And Lake City Ammo was the only small arms ammunition plant for really quite some time being run by the U.S. Army and operated by the U.S. Army. However, there was not a lot of need for ammo in the decades following the Vietnam War. So a lot of this equipment and a lot of the facilities just became dilapidated, covered in cobwebs and rusted out and in terrible, terrible condition. And when America entered into the Gulf War in 1989, 1990, things changed. Suddenly there was this need to operate this Lake City Ammo facility in a way that has not been done for decades. And the U.S. Army then leaned on private companies to help them operate this facility. Currently, it is the Olin Corporation operating the U.S. Army Lake City Ammo plant. Olin Corporation is better known as Winchester. So ultimately what you have is you have a private company, Winchester, operating a U.S. military small arms ammunition plant. It's been that way really since 1990. Well, there's been a few other private companies operating it, but it's been privately operated since 1990 by private companies, and currently it's Winchester. And Winchester just won out on that bid a few years ago. But currently it's Winchester and has been that way, being run by civilians since 1990. So why is it that the U.S. Army is selling civilian ammo? Ultimately, as Lake City Ammo produces ammo at a rate of 4 million rounds a day, so little more than 4 million rounds a day is what they're producing at Lake City Ammunition Plant. And a good chunk of that is going to civilians, is going to you and me, where we can go to a store and buy it. Sometimes by bulk, there's so darn much of it. So why is it that they do this? Because, for the last several decades, we've gone back and forth between Democrat and Republican controlled of the federal government. Why is it at no point that ever stopped? Especially with the onslaught of attacks on the Second Amendment really over the last 20 years by the federal government. Why is it that they kept producing civilian ammo for us in Lake City Ammo? Well, the answer is they have to. They have to produce civilian ammo. Well, why do they have to? Well, there's a couple reasons. The practical reason is that they have no choice. With the exception of what's taking place in Ukraine, there's also right now not a big need for military ammo, for U.S. military small arms ammo outside of Ukraine. There's a lot of it going there, but there's really more larger shells going from Pennsylvania to Ukraine than the small arms coming from Independence, Missouri at Lake City Ammo Plant. So we're still sitting in a situation right now where there's not a big demand for U.S. small arms bullets. There just isn't. Civilian demand is always going to be a good demand. So in order to keep operating, to keep the machines going, to keep the employees employed, they have to sell to civilians. They have no choice. It's a logistical nightmare to not sell to civilians, because you're going to end up, or they will end up in the same situation they were right before the Gulf War, where everything's just rusted and running down. It is the civilian market that keeps those machines going at a much higher rate than just the military demand. So there's a real practical reason to be selling to civilians. And there's also a legal reason, and these are contracts. When Winchester was contracted to produce ammo for Lake City Ammo. Part of that deal was they would be making civilian ammo as well. They would be producing military ammo and civilian ammo right alongside each other at a rate necessary to fulfill both those things. Now, you have military contracts, not just with the U.S. military, but militaries around the world coming out of Lake City Ammo. You have police contracts coming out of Lake City Ammo, and you have massive civilian contracts coming out of Lake City Ammo. So legally, they are required. They're obligated to fill those contracts. They're also obligated to fulfill the contract they have with Winchester. You know, this is a multi-billion-dollar contract per year that it's going to benefit the U.S. Army to keep Winchester happy, and it's going to benefit the U.S. Army to be able to keep those machines going, pumping out ammo to the civilian market for legal reasons and practical reasons. And that's why we have civilian ammo coming out of Lake City Ammo plant. Number one, they have to run the machines, or they're going to be dilapidated like they were in 1989, 1990, leading up to the Gulf War. And they're also going to be losing employees. Like right now, there's a massive hiring spree going on at Lake City Ammo. If you're looking for a job making bullets, they're definitely hiring. And if they got rid of civilian contracts, they'd be laying people off. It'd be the opposite of what they're doing. There's a wild success story coming out of Lake City Ammo plant on the sheer volume of ammo they're producing and selling. And nobody wants that to stop. The government doesn't want it to stop because they have contracts that need to be fulfilled and they're making a ton of money. The government doesn't want it to stop because they need the U.S. Army plant to continue to run and be pumping out this much ammo in case there's a need for it again. They're already in that mode to produce that much. So there you go. There's why the U.S. Army really has to sell to civilians. Because they need it. They need the civilian ammo market to be successful in order for the U.S. Army small arms ammunition plant at Lake City Ammo to be successful. So there you go, man. Any thoughts or insight on that? Definitely put it below. Do want to take a moment, see most people watch the channel. Hey, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. Greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That's below. But most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever, ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, love guns.